So welcome to our podcast.
Thank you.
We're so glad you joined us today. This is Rich Kassebaum.
Kassebaum.
Oh, see, there we go again.
No problem.
No problem.
It hardly ever gets pronounced correctly, so.
So I am a former German teacher. So.
Are you?
Yes. So Bredt, for Bret's last name, I say Pagenstecher. And then for your last name, I say Kassebaum.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's good.
So I feel like I'm in the right room.
You are.
Yeah, well, welcome. So Bredt and I have been working together for a while now, and we've been talking a lot about how people maximize wealth through real estate. And I watched my dad, I grew up on 100 acres that my grandpa owned and the whole family owned. But I watched my dad buy a little piece of land and build an A-frame. It was so cute. My dad, and then mom and dad kept that, and they bought another little house. Mm-hmm. And then my grandpa moved to Las Vegas and started a truck stop company. So my family moved to the farm. So my first experience in real estate was just watching mom and dad like paint the house when the renters would move out. And you know, I still have dreams to this day about the renters ruining some of the things at the house. So it's a real passion for me to see you doing rentals too, because I saw my parents really work hard at that. So your background isn't in real estate investing or anything. Your background is in accounting, right?
Correct. I graduated from Portland State with a degree in accounting and finance.
Wow.
So I was going to be a CPA, but I didn't like working behind a desk. Actually, I was going to be a naval pilot too, but that's another story. Anyway.
Oh, so you fly?
I was in the aviation reserve. So, but anyway.
Are you current on your pilot's
No,
license?
I don't. I never. It's a long story, but I didn't go through with it.
Come on, we can still do it.
Oh yeah, I thought about it. So, but anyway, yeah. It's I went from to be a pilot to be a CPA, and then I ended up working in the dirt for a landscaper right out of college. So,
wow.
Yeah. And from there, I started my own business. I started my own landscaping business.
Oh.
Yeah.
So from landscaping,
I sold my landscaping business after about 10 years, and then I transferred into, buying pieces of property like your mom and dad and fixing them up and then selling off, extra lots. I always like to find something that had an extra lot on it, or I could create an extra lot, because I figured even if if I don't make any money on the house, which sometimes you don't, I can always make money on the land.
Yeah.
Right, good point. They're not making any more land, but
they're not making any more land.
More people moving into the area.
Yeah, because my first project did not go well. I mean, that was my very first project, and it took me a year to get it all finished. And I did too much. I did all the classic mistakes, put too much into it, too much money into it, too much time into it. I probably made about $4 an hour.
So what was it that made you decide to go for that first project after selling your landscaping company? Why real estate?
Well, we moved to Alaska, my family did, and then that didn't work out there because I loved it, my wife didn't. So we moved back, and I had no job now, and didn't know what to do, and I had a friend who was in landscaping, he was in real estate, he was a realtor. He says, well, why don't you try buying a house and fixing it up and selling, and so he convinced me to do that, and I thought, oh yeah, I'll try that. And so fortunately it had enough land on it, I split 3 lots off of it, and believe it or not, this was 1994, so I sold 3 lots for $15,000 each.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
3 lots for $15,000 each.
Wow.
And that's what made the deal work, because I didn't make any money on the house. It was
So you got the house, split off the 3 lots.
I split off the 3 lots.
Fixed up the house.
That was my first project, and when I went into that first project was on past 82nd, between 82nd and 92nd, and Southeast Portland. It was my first rodeo. Yeah. So it was a big learning experience. I had to teach myself electrical, plumbing. I'd never done any of it before. So
wow. So you kind of learned on
the go. Yeah, I just went to Home Depot and bought all the little books on plumbing, bought the books on electrical, just educated myself as much as I could. I did have a friend who had been doing this. He was from high school, and so he kind of like gave me a few tips what to do and whatnot, and then I had to learn myself about how to develop it, how to split the lots off and do all of it. But then in those days, 40 years or 30 years, it was a lot easier than it is today to do a little division and partitions and all that stuff. But
We agree with you, although
yeah,
we weren't practicing real estate then.
right, yeah.
But
So,
yeah, it was easier.
it was a lot easier. I could get a permit to build in 2 weeks
Oh,
in
wow.
Portland.
Wow.
Now it takes
It's
Four-
9 months, right?
4 to 9 months. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, that
So
was my first project.
Wow.
But
And then from there, you started buying them, fixing up, and then what?
I finally got tired of. I realized I liked the development side better than I did the fixing up
Okay.
of the homes. And so this friend that I knew in high school, he'd been doing what I was doing, but he was like 5 years ahead of me, and he'd been building homes.
Wow.
So I said, well, maybe if I built a brand new home, it wouldn't be so taxing, and it drives me crazy when I'm fixing up an old home because people do weird things, and then you don't know about it until you open up the wall or you open up this, and it's a mess. So you think you're going to spend $20,000 and then you end up spending 40, quite often. But
Because you find mistakes that
oh yeah,
other
I
people
found,
have
and I'm not the
made
kind of
and
guy that
hidden.
wants to hide it, so I fix it.
Right. It's just better to fix it.
Yeah, right. So better to fix it, and then you spend more money than you anticipate. Quite often, it takes longer. But I found that if I could divide the lot off and then build on it brand new, then it was a lot simpler. And so
Oh.
yeah, so I could. And sometimes I'd keep the house. Now, if I was fixing them up, sometimes I just keep it. Every once in a while, I'd keep a house.
Oh.
Right. But my main business became developing the land, small lots off of big lots. Like you get a 10,000 square foot lot, maybe I could get 1 or 2 more lots off of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then because that's like, maybe you buy the whole thing. In those days, let's say you bought the whole thing for $150,000, and then you fix the house up. Actually, we bought some stuff at $40,000.
My gosh.
I bought one house for $20,000,
What?
but that was in 1994.
Right.
And all of Northeast in those days, you could buy anything for anywhere from $10,000 to $40,000, whatever you wanted.
Wow, so that's almost 30 years you've been doing this.
Yeah, it's been 30 years. Yeah.
Do you have any projects that really stand out to you as your favorite projects
Oh
that
yeah.
you'd like to talk about?
I always listed my projects from a baseball standpoint. So a single, double, triple, home run, or
Oh,
grand
yeah.
slam.
Okay.
So
Oh.
it's like you don't usually get the grand slams, but one day I was in Montana with my family on vacation. This was in 2010, and it was right after the Great Recession. So
Oh, gosh.
everything, there was no end in sight. We didn't know if it ever going to come back. Basically, I was just scraping by to get to make a living, basically. And a realtor calls me up and he says, "Hey, I got this property on right off of North Mississippi," and I didn't know where that was at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Okay, well, what about it?" He says, "Well, it's an up and coming area. It's got this triplex, and you got this extra land on it." And as soon as he said extra land, I said, "Oh, okay, well, what is the extra land?" So it had a triplex on it plus another 10,000 square feet of open land, and so
That's a lot.
and the person that was selling it, they bought it a couple years before, and of course the recession hit, and they didn't have any money to finish it out, so they were selling it, and nobody's buying property then. So I had fortunately just sold a piece the year before, so I had cash.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, so I bought that property, and I ended up buying that thing for I think it was $400 or $500, something like that. And then I split 4 lots off of it. Each one of those lots was worth like $125 to $150, and then the triplex now is worth about $750.
Wow.
So that was like a grand slam.
That's cool.
That was a grand slam. Those don't come off
Sounds
very
like it.
often, and plus it was coming out of a recession, so I didn't have a lot of competition.
Yeah.
There wasn't everybody going after that thing.
Mm-mm.
But But most of them are singles and doubles, and I don't know if you know where North Mississippi is, but it's 20 years ago it was just like drug haven. Just you didn't want to even go out on the street at night because you could get shot.
Yeah, it's.
And then, but I bought that in 2010, so it's like
10.
About 13 years ago.
Wow.
12 years.
So you really did a good job.
On that one, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I made out well on that one.
Yes. And that one.
Did you hold on to the property, the house, as a
I held on to the triplex, yeah. So that's
Yay.
like, that rents out, never have a problem. I can rent that out tomorrow if somebody wants to live there.
Yeah.
Because it's such a hot area. Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that area with all the food carts and
Yeah, it's food
restaurants.
carts.
There's
It's really
endless things to do.
Yeah, seriously, 20 years ago you wouldn't want to be down there.
Mm-mm.
But
No, but now they have Prost also.
Like what?
Prost, it's a German restaurant.
Oh yeah, it's on the corner there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's been there for a while.
Yeah, and it's delicious.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been there. So.
Yeah, I really like the tea place down Mississippi, a little further west.
Mm-hmm.
There's a really nice tea place called Fly Awake that has a huge selection of teas and a really tranquil vibe inside.
Mm-hmm.
You can hang out there for hours.
Yeah.
For a second, I thought it was going to be bubble tea.
No,
Bubble tea.
Not bubble tea.
I love bubble tea.
So.
Well, you and I met last year at an interesting property downtown we thought was going to sell, but the owner decided he was not going to sell. And I think it was about 8,000 square foot.
Right.
And the house was maybe like 1920 or something, pretty old.
Right.
And it literally sat in the middle of the lot. And I've been teaching these classes about the laws from Salem. And there's this law called House Bill 2001, which allows you to put a lot of houses on one tax lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking, oh, wouldn't this be a fun one to do? But when you got there, you were thinking, leave the house, right?
Yeah, because there's you have to trade off between what the value of the house is and whether you tear it down. Because I think they wanted $600 for that or something, and at that time, was that last year?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That House bill, it was still kind of like in flux. You weren't sure what you were going to be able to do with it.
Yes, that's true.
And so at that time, I thought, well, I don't think I could only get maybe one or two more, maybe two more houses on there. Divided in two. That's the only way at that time I think it could be done. It just wasn't worth tearing the house down for that.
No, and it was a beautiful old house.
So you have to. The plan there would be to keep the house and try to put another house next to it. But like you say, it was pretty set in the middle. So
it was in the middle, and then there was a garage on the left side. So I guess you could have put like a narrow, skinny house.
You could you could tear down the garage and put a narrow, skinny house right there, and that would work.
So I wanted to talk to you too about some interesting condos I've been seeing.
Mm-hmm.
So they took a lot, basically that size, about 10,000 square feet, and they knocked the house down. And this is kind of over by Mississippi.
Okay.
And they built 6 units. So it's just this one big
building with 6 units in it.
Yes.
3 units on one side and 3 on the other.
3 on the other.
I built one of those.
You built one of those. So okay, my question was, did you have trouble selling the units?
Well, I did because of the location I was in.
Oh, okay.
And 2 reasons: the location I was in, 1, 2, they didn't like the flats as much. So one on top of another is not as popular because everybody can hear you. So if you're on the top floor, it's fine, but if you're the next one down, you can hear everything. So they feel like it's an apartment.
Yes.
So it's not as an attractive sale. The trick a lot of people are doing now with condos is, which I may do too, but they're building condos so you're not living on top of one another. It's more like a townhouse style. So you have one condo here, and they may have two or 3 stories to that one condo, and then another one over here, like that. And they're also building them just detached condos. So it's still a condominium association legally,
right?
But your walls are separated.
Kind of like the cottage clusters.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's similar to that. Right.
Well, that makes sense too.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of nice new construction exactly like that, where you have 4 of them and maybe ADUs in the basement.
Right.
A few of those over by Mississippi Street.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yeah. So you and I had an interesting phone call last week where we were talking about a house you recently built that, is it Holte?
Yeah, it's in what's called the Holte program. Portland Housing Bureau has a program called Holte, which stands for Homeowner Limited Tax Exemption. So what it does is for 10 years, the homeowner does not pay taxes on the improvements. So, if you buy a house for $450 and the improvements are worth, let's say, $300, then you don't pay taxes on those $300,000. You just pay taxes on the land. So
At the lower rate.
at the lower, yeah, right.
And do you have to fit in an income bracket?
You have to be, yes. The occupants of the home the total occupancy of the home has to be a total of 106,500 or less.
106,500.
Or you can have like 2 people occupying the home, or 1 person, up to 4 people. It's 106,500. If you have more than that, the price, the income limit goes up. And you can have 2 adults living there and 2 children. If you only have one of the adults on the title, then only their income would qualify for that income cap. So you can have somebody that makes $100,000 and somebody makes another $60,000, but if the person that makes the $60,000, if you don't put them on title, then you qualify for just the one that's there. It's a little loophole that my realtor knows about.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I was glad you told me about it. The guy that got me into real estate, Troy Wilkerson, we were PCC teachers together.
Oh.
So he does classes at Portland Housing Bureau.
Oh, okay.
So I'm sure he knows about it too. So now there's a couple of us that know.
So it's a good program for anybody. You don't have to be it used to be you had to be a first-time home buyer, but they changed that. So it's just it's an income qualification, and then the sales price can't be more than $455,000. So, which is crazy because I remember they've had this program around for a long time, and it used to be, which is really cool. It didn't matter. Builders could build one of these things and keep it. So I used to build them and then keep them for rentals, and then sell them later, because you wouldn't have any taxes, for that.
Yeah.
For a while, and then I sold a couple really creatively. I'd build them, and then I would sell them on like a lease to own or a contract. So we're trying to help people get in. When I first started out, I was building mostly just starter homes, in the low $100,000 range.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah, the mid '90s.
The mid '90s.
My first home I sold for $129,000.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it is. That house now is probably worth. I still have the house next to it that I split off a lot, so it's like probably worth about $460 to $490. That house that I built. It's only like 1,250 square feet, something like that.
So that's a good question. You bought back in 1994. So if you 120, 220, 320, 420. So that's quite a bit. That's like appreciation times.
Well, it's about 30 years, less under 30 years, 28. So it's probably about. I'd have to look it up. It probably averages around 5%, I think,
That's
per
great.
year. If you took, I can get I can figure it out, but
No, you don't have to be
Yeah,
an accountant
yeah,
today, but a good general number.
it's up there, 5 to 6% probably, maybe more. I can't remember now, but basically that's quadrupled in 30 years. But you have to figure every time you have an appreciation rate, you appreciation on appreciation. So if you have $100,000 and it appreciates 5%, that's $105,000. The next year it's $5,500 because you're
getting a little bit more every time.
Your appreciation on top of your appreciation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's really, plus you're paying down your mortgage, so you're going both ways on it.
Going both ways on it.
And in Portland, I think the average appreciation for the last 30 years has been somewhere between 4 to 5%.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I remember the first year back from the crash was, I think, 2014 was the year we really started to see it come. Mm-hmm. And that year we got like 8% appreciation. Mm-hmm. I was just dancing around, and my boyfriend he loves stocks versus property. Yeah. So we had a big talk about that year.
Well, you get, stuff. I mean, if you really know that asset class, then go for it. Mm-hmm. What I like about real estate is that you can kind of like supercharge your appreciation because if you average 9 to 10% in the stock market every year, and you don't do any kind of like leveraging in the stock market, which some people do, but I wouldn't recommend it, but some people do. But in real estate, it's really easy to leverage and not get in trouble because you have an asset there. It's always going to be worth something. And if you have a renter in there, even when everything crashes, the prices go down like they are now, you're still getting paid every month. Right. You're getting paid for that. So you're paying your mortgage every month.
You're still paying.
So if you're not too far leveraged, and I don't recommend for rental houses being more than 75%. 25% down, because that way you're not too far underwater when you get in trouble.
If you have to sell it a lot.
You have to sell it, yeah. But you got to realize, let's just take a $100,000 home, and let's say you're 20% leverage, so you're in it for $20,000. Well, now every year that let's say it does 8%. Well, that's 8% on 20. It's not 8% on 20,000. It's 8% on 100,000.
You're right. Yeah.
So the stock market guy has 20,000. He's getting 8%. Let's say he's getting 10. He's really doing well, right? Mm-hmm. So he just made an extra 2,000. The real estate guy, he has 20,000 in the real estate market, and the house is worth 100. He just made 8% on 100,000. That's $8,000.
Yeah.
So $8,000 on $20,000 is 40% return.
Yeah.
Right.
So 40% return, and that doesn't even include your depreciation. So if you're depreciating that $80,000 at 27.5 years, everything, that's whatever. It's that's $4,000. Let's say $4,000. In depreciation. Well, if you're in a tax bracket of averaging 30%, that's another $1,200 you just saved on taxes. And you got your rent. You're paying down your mortgage every year.
Yes.
So let's say that rent's paying down whatever, $100 a month, $1,200. So you add all those things up. You get $1,200 in tax savings. You get $1,200 on paying down the rent, and then you got another, $8,000 in appreciation. So if you add it all up, you can probably average between 12 to 15% every year.
Wow.
On an average of, if you're appreciating at 4% a year, you're probably going to average with 20% down, 12 to 15% return.
Amen.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then in 8 years, you've recovered your not even that. Yeah, it doesn't take long to recover that $20,000.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I just can't write it down fast enough in my mind, everything you're saying. But it's sure encouraging to hear that you decided you were going to use real estate, and you did. Mm-hmm. So thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
We really appreciate you coming on the podcast today, Rich.
Sure, Bredt.
And before we close out, is there any advice or tips you have for your average person who's thinking about investing in real estate for their first time?
Yeah, I'd say get started today.
Today. Not tomorrow.
Not tomorrow. Don't wait. Get started.
The sooner the better.
Find a good realtor that's tenacious and has the same vision you have, and then get educated, because that's what I did. I started reading books and talking to people, and I went to classes. I went to, real estate classes. I went to, title company classes, and I met great people that, improved my team, like Caralee and whatnot. And I have a friend right now. He's 70, and I met him 30 years ago, and we're still friends. He was my realtor for quite a while. So, yeah. But yeah, we both learned it together. He was on the realtor side, and I was on the investor
You're on the
side.
investor side.
And he did some investing too, But anyway, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. Nice to meet you.
You
Bredt.
too.
Ellie says thank you too.
Oh, want to shake hands?
Can you shake, Ellie? She hasn't learned how to shake yet, but she can sniff out a mousey.
All right.
All right.
We're done.
Thank you.
Yay.